This episode of UK Low Carb Podcast is sponsored by Deliciously Guilt-Free. Enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Tuesday show. I'm quite excited because today I'm joined by two people I met in 2017. So just to go through the backstory very, very quickly. In 2017, Westman, my wife, and I had the crazy idea that there was this conference going on in America, which is Low Carb USA conference. And because we were just learning about low carb at the time, we thought it was only right I should put my savings together and then head out over there. When I did, I got to meet, but very briefly, Doug Reynolds and Pam Devine, who are the organizers. They are the parents of Low Carb USA, and they're joining me today on the podcast. Welcome, guys, to UK Low Carb.
Hey, Dan, thanks for having us, man.
Yeah.
Great to have you on. I feel like, because you're like Low Carb USA and we're UK Low Carb, we're cousins across the pond, right? And
Exactly.
Doug very, very kindly came onto my third show ever, and the strange thing is then, Doug, I remember using this new program called Zoom that I'd never even heard of. This is like February 2020. Little did I know that would become the main way to talk to my family on Christmas Day. It's been a very interesting few months.
It certainly has.
A few months. It's heading into a couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
That how to connect and online and virtually all over the world. So it kind of brings us together at the same time.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But you know what? We're getting used to the new normal. And one of the things that's coming back, which I'm really excited about, is the conference this year in San Diego once again. Would you mind, before we go into this year's lineup and a bit about the conference, can you just tell me, how did the conferences start in the first place? And, whose idea was it out of the two of you? How was that conversation handled when one of you said to the other, guess what, love, I want to have a conference and it's going to make your life very stressful every single summer?
Well, so I've told this story a million times, and Pam keeps saying, would you say the same thing? And I said, well, it's the same story.
He's not a politician, is he? He's not going to change it.
So she's never told the story, so maybe she can tell the story instead. Maybe we'll have a different
now
version.
we're going to know if it's not true, Pam.
It's funny because I also have a little bit of a different take on it than he does. It's a smaller one. I just remember, we discovered low carb lifestyle because we don't like to call it a diet. We were in a very stressful job working at a startup in the executive staff, kind of corporate staff setting, something that we only did for a short time. Doug had a long history of engineering and working in software engineering, working in a software firm, and we worked together there for many years, and things changed. So then we started working in this other firm together. So we've done it a lot. We've worked on many different jobs together now one of the things that we did so we learned the lifestyle and we started implementing low carb for ourselves and saw tremendous changes. Doug had dropped a lot of weight, reduced some inflammation, was liking running again. We were very active in martial arts at the time, and the recovery time was improved and shortened tremendously. And one of the biggest things for me was food freedom, I like to call it. I wasn't real sick at the time, but we now know without having lab testing that we were insulin resistant. We were slowly putting on weight every week. It seemed like for me, it was suddenly really increasing quickly. And I hadn't been used to that. I was, the teenager 20-year-old that could eat anything she wanted. Although ups and downs were really normal for me. It's not normal to have
normal for a lot of Westerners, unfortunately, with the diets that we're eating. That's a sad reality, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not normal to have that crash and that hangry feeling that we've come up with a name for. I'm hangry and I'm cranky and I want to kill anybody who comes to my desk in my office because I haven't had a chance to eat yet. It's not normal to feel anxious about eating and getting fuel for your body. So when we learned protein and fat was the thing to focus on, really protein, your body will keep eating carbohydrates until you get enough protein. Well, that kind of rings a bell and says, oh, that makes sense. And, you're having that afternoon slump and the disgusting vending machine at the candy bars is in the hallway. And you think, well, that's going to help me get my energy back up because I'm crashing after this. So, I would have my healthy breakfast in the morning, oatmeal, a banana or granola bar, all low fat milk in my coffee, but lots of sugar. And so I was crashing 2 hours into it. And saying, Doug, I've got to go over to the deli and get something. Do you want something? I need hard-boiled eggs or something. My mind would often go to protein and that fat, to get me over that hump. The afternoons, it was always more sugar. But so when we learned this, how it was changing our life, and we kind of started wanting to share it with people. We were very active in our running club, volunteering, and we always brought out like a real carby based, carb loaded drink for electrolyte drink. And we just wanted to start sharing this with people that maybe they didn't need as much sugar in their lives. And then we kind of started thinking, well, maybe we should do it more officially. One of the jobs that we did at that startup was small seminars and one big conference. So we learned a little bit about doing conferences. One of the things that I often remember to tell people that Doug doesn't is he had also started, as he wanted to share this with people, doing a course and realizing that there weren't a lot of things out there to teach people. We didn't learn a real easy way, like we learned the hard way. Certain things were more carby than others, and they weren't really they might raise our blood sugars more than we thought. Watermelon and beans and different kinds of things.
So-called healthy food, right? You always thought were healthy foods, and now suddenly you're realizing for the first time, hang on a minute, they're not as healthy as I thought.
Yes, the oatmeal's making I had learned the oatmeal was making my blood sugar crash quite quickly, an hour after, 2 hours after I ate it. But the banana, I didn't realize. It took me a while to really wrap my head around getting rid of the banana. But even after we went low carb, it was like some of that more sugary fruit, because I had cut out a lot of fruit. I'd been adding it in thinking I was doing a healthier diet. And then I was like, I shouldn't eat the oranges and the pineapples or the juices and things like that. So we really started thinking we wanted to teach others. And Doug had done a course. He wanted to become a coach, but it was a South African-based company that wasn't taking international people yet. And he was devastated. He really wanted to be that coach. He really wanted to implement something. So he said, I'm going to build something myself. And I even had written and said, you don't know what you're missing if you don't accept Doug Reynolds as, one of the participants in your new program. Because he's really passionate and he is really dedicated to this and helping people. So I kind of wrote a little bit in my premonition of, well, maybe we'll invite this experts to our town and Doug will probably just build something himself. So he actually went straight to work on building a coaching program, which is on Low Carb USA. We didn't promote it a lot because it didn't end up being real finished and sparkly, like Doug will say. He's an engineer and he wants it to be real pretty. It's basically a read it yourself kind of thing. It didn't have pretty videos. It didn't have lots of pretty pictures. He'll say it was kind of rough around the edges, but it's still there. And we can get into this later, but we do have someone who partnered with us to actually put that into a video form, online platform device form.
Amazing.
Coaches that are virtual, and they're all coming to our conferences coming up. But we did end up planning
together. That's quite hard because the thing. Okay, I just think in this way as a podcast host. If I tried to get Tim Noakes onto the show, I had to find a way to contact Tim Noakes, then ingratiate myself enough to say, do you want to give up an hour of your time on Zoom or something to chat to me as a complete stranger to you? And quite often these people are very generous and they'll say yes. But you're actually saying, do you think you can get on a plane or can you drive and come to where I am and give a talk in person, please?
Yeah,
and that's really hard.
Doug tells this part of the story.
But not only that, but most of these are very high profile people who charge for their time. And for the most part, I'm asking them to come and do it for nothing because we're a startup and we got no money. And would you be prepared to just come and speak just for the greater good?
Yeah. And your grassroots, which I think is actually your
and
strength,
they all
actually.
do. It's crazy, man.
But I think the fact that your grassroots is your strength because you're saying, look, we're trying to build the communities, which is what very much what this podcast is about. It's a grassroots movement for change, and it's trying to share those N=1 stories. The more that you hear, the more you realize that this is going to change the world. And you're just doing it in a slightly different way by saying, let's bring people together. Because I think it's only fair that I reflect on my experiences of Low Carb USA in 2017. So I'd never been to America before. I'd left Britain, but I'd never been to the States. And I remember thinking, you know, I always thought I was going to go to New York or somewhere first, not San Diego, which is a gorgeous city. I really loved it there. So I arrived at the conference, and it took me a little while to get used to it, if I'm honest, because I've never, ever, to that point in my life, been in a place where everyone was on the same page as me, which is a very interesting feeling. So you turn up to this hotel thinking it's just a hotel like any other hotel, and everyone straight away is friendly. They're really warm. They're welcoming you in, and you feel like, oh my goodness, the first time in my life I've actually found the place where I belong, because people understand me. The food that was there, because I had the food package as well, which I highly recommend for anyone listening. And you don't have to worry about the food being keto. It just is. And you're like, oh my goodness, so this food is accessible. That tastes so flipping lovely. What magic is this? And I love the whole thing. And then the actual talks themselves, we did actually take out 2 tickets that time, because my wife was watching it live while she's working and looking after the kids. And I was there, and she was like, oh, talk to this person. They're amazing. Did you hear this talk? Yeah. Okay. And then what I'd managed to do is my little trick for anyone who's listening who will be there. I would sit around the area of the microphone people were at the very back, because all the guests came in to get their mics put on. And that's the point where I'd meet them and have a little chat. And I just met Gary Torbs and Sarah Hallberg that year. I'm trying to think of some of the other people who were there. It's just a bit overwhelming. It's amazing. And then when it ends, and it ends all too soon, I just had this real feeling of loss, like, well, it's all over. What do I do with myself? I'm going to have to go back to the world and listen to low-calorie diets and how fat's bad for you and have low fat in your food. And it was kind of, I'd really missed it. So it was a really positive experience for me.
It's amazing that 4 days can seem to go that quickly. And I mean, we start early. I mean, we're starting at 8 a.m. and finish at 6. And then we've got... you remember the wine tasting, and then the dinners afterwards. We have a carnivore option now as well.
Oh, brilliant.
A 14-ounce ribeye steak onto that dinner. So that's...
it was on a ship, if I remember. Apart from Sunday nights.
Yeah, no, so we did...
Yeah,
I think we did that 2 years, but it was a lot of overhead to organize that extra thing on the other side of the road. And we had issues with a couple of their wait staff and stuff, and so and it was costing us a ton of extra money.
Right.
Way more.
Now, if it's consoling to you, I enjoyed myself.
Oh, good. No, but now we do the same dinner kind of menu. I forget if chef actually cooked that and then shipped it over.
It's done by the same chef.
But we now just do it right outside in the little courtyard.
But now it's in the courtyard, right outside the hotel, instead of trying to get people across to the ship on the other side of the road.
Yeah, so it's beautiful. We're outside, the sunsets, and like you said, we worked really hard with Chef, who has been so fantastic over the years to learn how to cook low carb, what not to put in it, what to put in it. Everybody enjoys the food so much. I'm looking forward to, he does a classic Thursday night this year is oxtail and a beautiful fish dish.
Slow
and then he'll do lovely sides. And then he's even learned how to do a low carb dessert for us with, erythritol or xylitol or stevia. Or
right. You know what? This is annoying now because I can't be there in person. So this is the worst bit for me. Let's move on. Let's just say it's good for those who are going to be there. And I'm not envious at all.
Cook yourself while you're watching the live stream and share.
I will have to. Yeah, I've got a ribeye in the fridge. I might have to look after this. So let's get then to the nub of the conference of this year then. So when is it and who's going to be there?
So it is August 26 to 29. So it's like next week. Yeah. When this airs, it'll be starting 2 days later. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't know if you want me to run through some of the speakers.
Well, tell us some of the lineup. Yeah, because I mean, the thing I always love is you've got the main speakers, but also you got breakouts, haven't you? So tell us some of the names.
Yeah, so Gary Torbs is going to be there again. He's been at every one of our San Diego ones. He's been an amazing support for us. Brian Lenskes is one of the halves of Low Carb MD podcast, which I think is it's the most popular keto podcast, I believe.
Right.
Robert Sivas. I don't know if he'd spoken 17. I don't think he did yet.
No, I don't think he was there.
Rob Sivas is just. I don't know if you've interviewed him or not, but he's
not as yet.
He's spectacular.
You're gonna like him. He's actually originally South African.
He's also South African as well. Yeah.
Okay.
But he really talks about the emotional management system around changing lifestyle and just being sustainable. So not looking for food for comfort, but finding other things for comfort and emotional well-being. So a lot of struggle that people might have when they think or hear that they should cut out sugar, especially, but also, you know, the potatoes and the bread and the thing and the comfort food and the stuff that goes along with cakes and sweets and cookies that people associate with love, culture, celebration. He talks about, you know, maybe go outside, use art. So you learn a lot from Dr. Saiva. So when you guys join in and listen to him. Eric Westman is another one who's been at every one of our San Diego.
I used in 2017. Yep, I remember him being there.
2017. He's got it. He's probably the doctor who's had the most clinical experience and treating patients for as long as he has. Then he comes and shares his wealth and knowledge around that. And he's going to be talking a little bit of the differences between what he practices and what people learn on the internet. So that'll be compelling to have him go over stuff like that.
Yeah. So Tony Hampton is a new addition, and he is our first African-American speaker that we've ever had. And I don't know, you probably noticed when you were there, and we've noticed at all our other 14 other events that we've done, like there's virtually nobody, one or two sometimes, and often none, African-American attendees.
We really want to diversify.
Why? What are we doing wrong that this is the case?
It's a good question.
At one point, someone suggested, like, well, you don't have any African-American speakers. And it was like, yeah, that's true. But we didn't know anybody. We didn't know of any, let alone actually know them. And then I got to meet Tony. He is just the most amazing guy. And hopefully we get a chance to talk about it here still. Otherwise, we need to do another podcast about it. But the SMHP, the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, it's a nonprofit that we started for practitioners in this space to give them a real home. And Tony's on one of our committees there, which we're calling the Outreach Committee, where we are working on trying to work out what we need to do to reach the minority groups in America especially, but all over the world, really.
That's brilliant. I'm glad you're asking that question, because otherwise you can feel like you're just talking to a certain segment of society without realizing you're missing out people who need this knowledge and need to be engaged with. Agree.
And you need to make sure that people understand that this isn't like in South Africa. When we talk to the Noakes Foundation and the Nutrition Network folks, they have Eat Better South Africa nonprofit. And you need to explain to people, anybody who's listening, this doesn't have to be an expensive lifestyle. And let's have a conversation about how to keep it on a budget and with a family and for students. And, you know, whatever the restrictions are on someone's budget, how do you work around that? You can very easily do this lifestyle, you know, buy eggs at your wholesale place, you can eat chicken and tuna in a can if you have to, buy whatever you have to do on sale, and use frozen vegetables so that you're not having the off of, you know, fresh vegetables, and yearly, you know, the prices change. Just, you know, how to do this on a budget, because it can be done.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that, Pam, because you know what? Sometimes you get in the keto groups on Facebook, people saying, oh, your beef really must be grass-fed, or and you think, well, that's lovely. And if you can afford that, fantastic. But let's be honest, telling people don't eat processed carbohydrate and sugar, and eating any just meat in its place it's not processed is good. You know, let's be forgiving, let's be tolerant, let's help people on this journey, not kind of use the keto police to then kind of make them feel bad or guilty about their choices.
Absolutely. And I know Eric Westman posted about that yesterday. He says he's not seen a difference in someone's blood sugar if they eat a burger that they made themselves, or even got no bun at a fast food place, versus a grass-fed filet mignon. He doesn't see a difference in their blood sugar. You know, we can talk about other aspects of that, but you know, when you're really focusing on metabolic disease and blood sugar regulation, there's not a lot of difference there. So.
Well, Peter Ballestedt is one of the other speakers, and he was the first person in 2016 event. I think he was a 2017 too.
But as well,
what his talk, particularly in 2016, brought to my attention this fact that yes, there is a slight difference between certain things in, from grass-fed, and they're all grass-fed, just by the way. It's just how they finished, right? So it's grass-fed, grass-finished, grass-fed, grain-finished. And there are minor differences, but if you look at the actual absolute values of these things that they're talking about, where there is a difference, omega-6, omega-3, that kind of stuff, the absolute values are negligible. They are and so therefore, in the terms of how it's going to affect you, it doesn't.
Yeah, don't throw the baby out of the bathwater, right? The fact you're doing it is a healthy thing.
Right.
You can always be as purist as you like, but actually the change you're making away from sugar and processed carbs is the thing that's going to make the difference.
That's what's important, right? Totally but at the same time, all these farmers that are trying to do all this grass-finished beef and this regenerative agriculture, and that is just the best thing ever.
For our planet as well.
I'm so excited about that, and I try and support them as much as we can.
Yeah, totally agree.
But hopefully, as we can do that, they are able to then charge less for that meat, and then more people can eat it, and it'll hopefully get to a point where everyone can do grass-finished beef. But that's not the case right now. We can't afford grass-finished beef. We never have grass-fed beef. And so don't tell me, and especially don't tell someone else that they can't do keto because they can't afford grass-fed beef, because that is just wrong. And I always get on my hobby horse when we talk about Peter Ballester, because every time he gets on the stage, no matter what he talks about, I always get up during his Q&A and say, oh, by the way, this is what Peter says, and you better listen to him, because this is something that just really irks me.
Love it. You know what? In many ways, though, we have to talk across all the class divides, all parts of society need to hear about this, because we're doing it for metabolic health ultimately, aren't we? And and this is what I love as well about your conference, when the people there are just like me, and I know you too as well. When you learn about this and you learn how your body works, you can't help but want to tell the whole world about it. And so you think, well, I want to tell everybody now. I want to spread the word so that they can actually have a better life for them as well. Yes. In fact, that happened yesterday. I said to somebody who, I feel sorry for this guy, but I won't go into details who he is. And he was saying he's going on a low-calorie diet. And I thought, you're going to suffer and it's going to be awful. And I hope it works for you. But I said, just out of interest, if you're interested, this is low carb and I'm happy to talk about it. And he said, no, I'm fine. And I thought, that's okay. I'm going to leave it as it is. But, I'll see how he gets on. And I think to be a real friend to somebody is only right to say, if you're interested, I'm here to tell you more. And that's what a conference does, doesn't it? You learn so much from other people there and you feel so supported.
Yeah. No, and more and more people, like so many of the people that come there are, if they're not physicians already, they either want to become physicians now that they've learned this, or they want to become keto coaches or health coaches. Yeah. And it's the same thing. It's why we do it. It's why, you just have that need to tell other people about it. Like the change, the transformation is so epic that you just can't help yourself. You have to tell people. We always joke about that first rule of keto is don't talk about keto, right? Because people just get so sick of us talking about it, but you can't help it.
You can't help it, exactly. I'm going to ask you a question then. So we just talked about some of the people who are going to be there speakers, but I'm going to ask you both, and I don't know who wants to answer this, who's the conference for? Because when I was there, I'm not a medical person at all, but there were medics there, which is interesting. So who wants to tackle that?
So most important for us is that we reach the physicians and the practitioners, because for every one of those people we can reach, we therefore, that multiplied by their reach, and that is so important. And there's so few of them that get this, that it's critical. But at the same time, we never wanted to make it just a medical conference where all these excited people want to come and listen to it. And to be honest, I mean, all of us, I'm not a doctor. But on this stuff and on the biochemistry and all of that stuff, I can go toe to toe with any of those doctors. In fact, I know way more than most of them, because they not the low carb ones, but the other ones, because they didn't ever learn about nutrition at university, and so they all they know is what they've learned from the ether, like all the rest of us, like,
isn't it?
Yes, that's that you were brought up to believe that fat's bad and this blah blah, and then they go and preach it. But now, because they're doctors, people take that as gospel and listen to it, but they actually don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And so you find that so many of these people, non-practitioners, engineers, housewives, whatever, they know as much, if not more, than a lot of the other physicians who are coming to learn about it. And so it every now and then a little bit goes over their heads, but for the most part they get it, and they can fully comprehend what's being told to them in this conference. But at the same level, it's a high enough standard medically that we can qualify to give those physicians continuing education credits and stuff like that they can use to keep their license current and all that stuff.
And it's not just, so, Doug mentioned the ladies, maybe at home, the working moms and dads, and there was a lot of presentations, like you said, that everybody can kind of click with. Maria Emmerich speaking, she talks a lot about all what she's done with her clients, what works well, what if somebody's struggling, and that, we've got Joan Iflin talking about how to manage this, like Rob Sivas does, how to manage the processed food addiction. Where do you find support? Where do you kind of the tools that you can use for yourself? And then what can the practitioner use with their patient population? So it kind of goes both ways with the presentations. I'm just looking at the speaker list and I'm thinking all of these ideas to let people know, besides the fact that we're talking about watching this in person, anybody can watch this from the comfort of their home or their office, or some of those are both now, home office, like ours. We're on the different ends of the house, but we, in each of our offices, but we're,
I did wonder if there'd been a fallout in pandemic times whereby, like, you've got one half, he's got the other, and this is how you communicate now. You're so 21st century millennial.
Yeah, we're talking to each other. We have a meeting and then we stay on Zoom, and he's just over there. But
dinner's ready. Leave it at the DMZ.
It's just crazy. And just while people are watching from home or they're planning to attend last minute, there are tickets still available to do that. But we're talking about mental health. Chris Palmer's talking about psychiatry, which doesn't get talked about a lot. People are suffering anxiety and depression even more now, but psychosis as well, who aren't getting talked. They don't get talked to by their psychiatrists about nutrition and how does nutrition affect what people will normally say the biochemistry of the brain. So that needs to be adjusted with medication only. But if you think about it, the food that goes in is also going to affect the biochemistry of the brain. And, we've had a lot of aha moments as we've learned, because like I have a medical background as an x-ray tech. I worked for many years as an x-ray tech. Doug's an engineer. Engineers often get stuff like this, like what is the dysfunction in the picture, system, right? The big picture and the dysfunction in the system, and
cause and effect as well, not just symptom.
Effect. So, a lot of the presentations are, they'll talk about things of connecting dots, and you're like, oh yeah, okay. So fat metabolism and the fats that you eat affect the way the synapses in your body and your brain work, and the uptake of this, and too much sugar, or if your body can't even use the sugar, that's leading to Alzheimer's disease that's now being talked about as type 3. Such important discussions for people to watch and see, and making small change or big change. How does it affect children? Kids are getting more and more diagnosed with ADD and ADHD, hyperactivity, can't focus at school, mood swings. How often do they get associated with what you're eating, what kids are eating, or what anyone's eating? I've just talked about that for myself, and you probably see it with your kids, that they probably don't eat that much sugar now, but you can see the kids bouncing off the wall. You're like, oh, they just had cake, and now in about 20 minutes they're going to be fighting with each other because they're having a meltdown.
They're crashing. No, exactly. Sounds amazing. So really, it's for everybody then. So for anyone who's interested in learning, whatever level you're coming at, if you already have medical qualifications, or if you're someone like me who's a layperson who's showing interest and I'm moderately intelligent, I say at best, then it's for everyone to come along and learn. And that's the thing I love. And actually, the unlearn's in fun.
Sorry, and I was just about to say our credits. Actually, we are accredited through the CPD Standards Office in London.
Right, okay.
And so our credits are internationally recognized. So for any of the practitioners on your side of the pond who wanted to listen, they can still apply for a CME or credits certificate. And I believe they call it in everywhere else except for the States, they call it CPDs.
Professional development.
And so we can specifically give them a certificate that doesn't say CMEs, it says CPDs if they need it.
Right.
So that is something available to them if you do have medical people that are listening that might want to use this for credits.
Yeah, and I wanted to make sure Doug mentioned
credits.
Physicians, but it is for nurses, dietitians, physical therapists have used it.
Any allied healthcare worker or healthcare professional, these credits are valid for. So
brilliant. Now the thing is though, Doug and Pam, people might be thinking, well, that's great, but it's now Tuesday when they're listening to this. It starts in a couple of days. I can't get a flight in that time. So what are they going to do?
Well, then that was what Pam was talking about. I think that we have a live stream.
Whoa, do you?
Well.
Tell me more about it.
So
see what I did there?
Yeah. I see what you did.
Not too subtle. No. Okay, good.
Yeah. So, we always did have a live stream at our conferences, but we wanted people to come and be there. And so like a week before we would start telling people, okay, if you still really can't make it, then here's a way to watch it via live stream. And we only had a handful of people that actually ended up watching it. But then last year, beginning of this year and last year, we did the Boca one in January, and last year in August, we did the San Diego virtually.
That's all we could
do. The virtual one in San Diego, we had 800 people. And,
from around
the world. Now, we obviously realized that there's a real need for this, and that, to be fair, I know we want everyone to come and visit us, but in reality, most people can't. But here's a way that you can still at least get this information, participate in it, and get your CME credits afterwards if that's what you need. So now we make the live stream available right from the beginning. And in fact, what we did initially was that we sold live stream tickets only and waiting to see what happened with COVID. And once they said, okay, it's opening up in June, we suddenly started now promoting it and saying, all right, now if you want to upgrade from the live stream to in person, then here's a way to do that. Otherwise, if you haven't already got a ticket, then here's a way to get the in-person ticket or the live stream ticket, because the live stream is still happening.
Yeah.
And so I think we've got about 300 people on the live stream and about the same coming in person as well at the moment.
Fantastic. So can I just ask then, where do people go to sign up for the live stream? If the UK listeners listen to the podcast now, what's the best way for them to access this and to join you for the conference? I know I'll be there for sure.
Yeah, so lowcarbusa.org.
Okay.
And then basically
upcoming conferences, or
you can do the menu system under events, or further down on that page there's a big image that has a thing about the San Diego conference. So you can click on that or go through the events menu option and find the event. And on that event page, if you scroll down, you'll see a list of all the speakers. There's about, we've only spoken about half of the ones that are actually going to be there.
Yeah.
And then actually it's just above that. There's a thing that says in-person ticket or live stream ticket.
Brilliant.
Right?
When you, what you'll want to do is log in, become a free member, log in, so that anybody who's either in person or live stream can access that live stream content. And just to make sure everybody knows, because you're 9 hours ahead of us, I believe.
8 hours, yeah. This is
8
the future.
hours.
This is what it looks like. It's all dark.
Some of it, but some of it's happening, while you're ready to go to bed. So these are all available for replay anytime anybody wants to watch them. So you can watch them in the middle of the night if you feel like staying up and watching them with us. There's a chat capability, so we can all talk with each other. We'll have people on the chat side. And then you can watch them to view any you missed or review any that you want to go back to. A lot of the speakers provide their slide decks so that we'll be able to communicate those by email. And then the live stream will all go kind of in like a one big stream for the first week or two to review. So there's a little bit of fast forwarding and rewinding on that. But Doug works really hard over the 2 weeks following the conference to get each presentation up as a separate video.
Massive
so that,
amount of work,
everybody can watch that. Right next to the in-person ticket button in the live stream sign up is the schedule. So you can see it's all written in Pacific California time.
Just plus 8 hours for us guys over here.
Plus 8 hours for you. Yeah. If you go to the live stream page, it automatically does go to your time zone.
That's pretty cool.
So that will help you see, what's coming up will be in your time zone, but the schedule just needs to be plus 8. And
that's great. And can we ask questions as well or not? Because Q&A, by the way, is always a tough thing, I think, with conferences, because everyone likes to stand and give a speech rather than just ask a question, right?
I have to be a Nazi to prevent that from happening. No,
it's tricky. It's tricky, isn't it?
It is. But so what when we did the virtual ones, we had our speakers, that were recorded, but they came on live during the talk while their talk was on, so that they were with me live when the talk ended. And we did a Q&A there, but it was now all virtual, right? So everybody had to type in their questions.
Yeah.
And then I would read out the questions to the speaker and they would answer it. So what we're thinking of doing is something similar, like have a Q&A panel on the live stream page and let people type their questions in, and we'll try and find a way to infuse some of those questions from the live stream audience into the thing, because now that there's probably going to be, by the time we actually have the event, there'll be quite a lot more live stream attendees than there will be in-person attendees. Whereas before it was like 5 or 10, So now it's kind of meaningful to have. There's a lot of people with a lot of questions there, so we will
understand that. Yeah,
we're still not 100% sure how we're going to make it work, but we'll learn as we go through the conference. We'll probably start out doing it one way and end up doing completely different by the end of the conference as we learn what does and doesn't work.
So
yes,
guys,
we're going to try and find a way.
Have a go. I think you can get your questions in there, and whatever method they'll get them, I'm sure, ask the right people. And people listening to this show, sorry, is there a code or anything? Did you say that they could use?
Yes. So we created a code for you that is UK Low Carb, all one word, and they get 20% off not only their ticket, but because I'm doubting that anybody's going to hop on a plane the next day and or that night and fly here.
If I could, I would.
Yeah. But the live stream ticket, and if they select to get the CME CPD certificate as well, there's a cost to that as well. But they'll get 20% off their entire purchase, whatever it is.
I'll tell you what, and for all the online people, we'll put a special discount, 100% off the food. So anyone watching online, you don't have to pay anything for the food whatsoever. I mean, you can't argue with that deal. Free is amazing, isn't it?
It's perfect, yeah.
And please follow our social media while you're doing this. And as you make your own food for lunch and dinner, breakfast, whatever it is, while you're watching it, go ahead and tag us and post a picture of your food that you're doing. We love that. We actually really enjoy it.
Yeah, brilliant. Definitely. Have you got a hashtag in particular, or just at Low Carb USA?
At Low Carb USA is always there, but actually, to be honest, I haven't even come up with one yet, but we will.
Do you want to do it now?
This could actually happen. Low Carb
San Diego 2021.
Or just May. Yeah. Otherwise it gets usurped by other people. So Low Carb San Diego 2021.
Okay, so Low Carb It's quite a long one, isn't it? San Diego.
Well, so that, well, maybe a low carb SD 2021. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's just see if I can put it on the screen now. So anyone who's watching this, there you go. So we've got hashtag low carb SD 2021.
2021. Okay.
There
So
you
we'll
go.
start using that. And what we'll do is we always have a carousel between speakers and lunchtimes and all of that with like our premium sponsors and stuff like that. And I always have a page on there with the kind of the hashtags that we're hoping people will use in that. So we'll put that on that screen. So if they're watching the live stream in between the talks and that, they'll actually see that.
Yeah, that just reminded me. We've got some amazing people coming. Okay, so we're lowcarbusa.org if you want to go to that. But we have a new app. Doug's worked so hard over the last few months, not only figuring out, oh, we're doing a live conference again. How do we put all that together and remembering that after 2 years? But also developing an app. It's on the Apple Store and the Google Play Store. Low Carb USA, all one word, right, Doug? Does it have to be dependent on capitals or?
No, it doesn't matter about that, but it must be one word.
And so we've got some wonderful participating sponsors for our event exhibitors, Keto Mojo and Keto Chow and Captain Soup. So Captain Soup told a story on Fat Fiction, if you remember.
Yeah. So did you watch Fat Fiction, right?
I have. Yeah. I've seen,
right. So that Apache pilot, Brian Gadet.
Yes. I remember. Yeah.
Right. So he started that whole that soup that he made to save his life.
Right. Yeah.
He sells it commercially now, and the organization's called, because he was like, he shipped overseas like cases of the soup so that while he was deployed, he could continue to eat this way.
Yeah,
which he was only able to do because he was an officer and a pilot, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Wow.
Someone grunt on some grunt infantry person wouldn't have been able to do that, but he could.
I bet.
But they used to call him Captain Soup, and so he started this organization called Captain Soup. He's actually got a booth at our event, and one of the other speakers that's got an incredible story is Mary Ruddick, and she is their director of nutrition or something for the Captain Soup.
Fantastic. And that's the other thing I didn't even talk about. The when you go to the other room that's part of the conference, there are different companies there who have got food to try and little samples and whatnot. And that's really fun as well, isn't it? To see the things that are coming out. I mean, you've got way more than we do in this country. I mean, I run Deliciously Guilt-Free, a low-carb bakery, but there's so much more in the States than there is in this country at the moment. And it's kind of interesting to see how fast things are growing over there. I think they're a bit behind you.
The only thing that concerns me a little bit with this is that everybody's jumping on the bandwagon now.
Yeah.
And so much of the stuff that's being sold as keto now is
really?
just not.
Yeah.
And,
I think you're right. I think actually that's definitely a conversation we could have at length, because I worry that the big food industry is going to come along and start saying, well, hang on, this is a new vegan. Let's stamp this label on top of your food. And next thing you know, you've got a keto product. Well, actually, unless you know what's in it, I'd be very wary of that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why you should.
They have keto stuff at the checkout aisles and stuff like that. It is just rubbish.
Yeah,
and
it is.
And they put a keto label on it so that they can cash in on the current fad, you know. And so we're all hoping that part of it will become a fad that will die away eventually, and that the people that are really serious about their health and their patients and whatever, that's not going to go away. That just
and actually, can I just say, the people at your conference, a bit like, for instance, my business, is run by people who live it, who know it, who would only eat what's good for them, and that's why they're sharing it with you. Whereas I think if it's done by a faceless corporation, that's also a distinguishing factor of thinking, is this just processed rubbish? I think I think the people behind it are everything, actually. I think
that's so neat about I've been watching Keto Chow. They do a live every day. They talk about what they eat, they live it, they share it, they support everybody. RX Sugar is another company. They're allulose company, so they're going to be an alternative sweetener for your baked goods and coffees. They've got stuff to put on your low carb pancakes and some chocolate syrup if you make a low carb ice cream. But the gal who's coming to represent, she's a she has type 1 diabetes herself, and she's lived with it for many years. So she likes to share a healthy way to keep blood sugar regulated. And We've got a couple other great companies. Simply Snackin', they're making like a dried meat product. They use a little bit of sugar in their curing fermentation process, but it doesn't have a lot of added sugar that stays in it. It's kind of in that process. So, something that people can easily take with them. We don't have a lot of food things this year, which is really interesting. But we have a lot of resources. We've got.
Well, I think that so many of them are not in business anymore.
Some of them haven't been able to.
Some of them haven't been able to sustain because. But I'm thinking that by the time next year comes, it'll be
a bit of a bounce back. Hopefully.
I'm obviously hoping, but
I'd love to come next year as well.
Yeah, no, that's what I was about to say. Yeah. And we gotta we do a special thing for the current attendees that are there that they can get tickets for the following year on faith, basically, because we don't even know what it's going to look like. Pretty much for half price or close to half price.
Oh, amazing.
So maybe, if you speak nicely to us, we might share that code with you.
I'll bring some cake with me just for you two, okay? Keto cake. There you go.
I was asking Maria Emmerich the other day. She posted something. I said, will you please bring the protein-sparing, modified fast eclairs? I'm like, yes, please. Will you please bring me one? She sent me the recipe. I'm like, I don't have time to make these right now. I'm planning
to make it made for you. Yeah, exactly. So I was going to ask a couple more questions, if I may. One of the big highlights for me when I was there in 2017 was on Sunday afternoon, which I guess would be very early hours of the morning here. You have a final panel show. And I think what I found interesting is that the different events, I guess at the beginning, I think it was, I'm trying to think who kicked off the event last time. Anyway, but it was interesting being there to Andreas Seinfeld. That was it. Mm-hmm. He was the first speaker, I remember. And I think everyone was there then, but I think everyone kind of comes and goes and there's a bit of a movement. But actually the final panel show, everybody's in one place at one time. So it's the busiest event, I'd say, the whole thing. And it's probably one of the most interesting things as well, isn't it? So do you want to just tell us a bit about the panel show? And then I've got a question for you individually. So I'm going to just serve it up now. What have you both learned from hosting these? So panel show first, and then what have you both learned from hosting these?
Okay, but now I'm all distracted. By trying to think of an answer. Yeah, thanks for that. So the final panel, I can't remember when we introduced it, but it was like right near I think it was like the second conference we did.
2017 definitely had it.
First. Did we even do it on? Oh no, but on the first one we had after each module we had like 3 speakers before lunch, and then those 3 speakers would be like we'd have half an hour before lunch now where they could answer questions or whatever, but we didn't have a Q&A after each one, and it really didn't work. So we've got a lot more time now for Q&As for the individual speakers after each one, and then introduce at the end for a few of the speakers that are still around, because a few of them have to get on a plane, get home so they can get to work on Monday morning. And it's a bit more open, like Doug, the Q&A Nazi, backs down a little bit. And
only a little bit.
Just no, you have
I'll tell your whole story.
It's amazing how out of control it can get. And I can tell you a story about that as well. But basically, people have a bit more freedom to ask questions that maybe get each of them to answer or whatever. But it turns into an amazing discussion, and it just flows. We just let it go where it goes. And nice. So there's no real rules to who gets to ask a question or who gets to speak on the stage or whatever. And it was originally planned to be like an hour long, and the very first one we did in West Palm Beach was like 2.5 hours. And I actually allocate that much time for it now because it just and the thing is that the speakers just sit there for 2.5 hours, and they some of them must be busting to go to the toilet and whatever, but they don't budge, and they sit there and they answer the questions and they have these debates amongst themselves, and sometimes they disagree on stuff even, and they'll go backwards and forwards and talk about that. And either come to an agreement or not, and then maybe we can move on. But it's like this whole thing. Now, everybody doesn't have to agree. We're never going to have everybody on the same page. And it's good that we have healthy debates and healthy discussions. And to me, it is always my favorite session. And
People
most of the time, after a while, I put it out on that one session. I put out on YouTube, so that it's not behind our paywall and whatever. And Pam mentioned Keto Mojo. They've basically licensed our videos now. So after 4 months, we open it up, we make it so that they can embed it on their website as well. And all of the conferences, it's like every one now, except for obviously the one that's about to happen for the next 4 months. All those videos since 2016 are available on the Keto Mojo site for free. So
amazing.
Wow. People, and then they pay us a license fee, and then they put it on their site for free. So people can go back and listen to all those talks that you listened to in 2017, and all the other events.
Be in some of them as well. Like Limey at the back, who's got a question. Excuse me. That'll be me. Yeah. And Pam,
because you often come up with questions that we might not have. That's what I love about the Q. Just to highlight that part about the Q&A sessions in the panel, people ask the most fascinating questions, and I think, I was thinking that, but I didn't have the guts to ask it, or I never even thought of it that way. And it'll jog even the person that's presenting, say, you know what, I hadn't thought of that, or I don't know that yet. I'm going to go back and look that up when I get home or when I get back to my room. But the final panel this year is Dave Feldman, Steve Finney, Eric Westman,
Dave,
and Ben Bakikio, Eric Westman, Steve Finney, and Dave Feldman. So Dave Feldman, one thing we didn't talk about, quickly highlight, we always want to talk about cholesterol at our conferences. Everybody's big question when they hear low carb is low carb, high fat, low carb, moderate fat, high protein. Let's kind of break this down. And everybody wants to know, what does all that fat mean? What does cholesterol mean? So Dave's been working really hard over the last 6 years. He came to our conference, the first one we had in 2016, and fascinated everybody with his laptop and showing them graphs.
What I love is his angle is so different. So actually, I got to talk to Dave. I remember meeting him, and I think we went for a steak in a Brazilian restaurant, if I remember rightly. But I remember him saying at the time, his point of view as an engineer was actually really fascinating. He was so data driven to show proper evidence, and I was like, wow, this guy's amazing. He's a very interesting person to talk to and to learn from.
Really interesting. I mean, he can, if you think the cholesterol conversation is set in stone, listen to what Dave Feldman says. He can make his cholesterol numbers change within a day or 2 or 3 just by what he eats, and he measures everything that he eats, and he does lab work all the time. So if we're talking about lowering cholesterol, well, he can do it in 3 days. He can raise it in 3 days just by what he's eating, and it's fast, and it's not the kind of food you would think.
So we had
it's not the fat.
We had lunch with him just like last week, talking about, he's got what am I allowed to say? A very special presentation.
He has a very special presentation
that he's got on
Is it
Friday.
Time sensitive? Oh, okay. Don't say anything until Friday, because you want to get a ticket, guys.
He's at the conference. And all I'm allowed to say, so that he doesn't kill me, is that it's a very special presentation. But it reminded me while we were sitting there that he got his phone and he took a picture of his food, and he always puts his fist next to it so people have, for portion size and whatever, you've got a frame of reference. And how long? Since before he even came to the 2016 one, since like 2015 or 14 or something.
Every single meal every
single thing that has ever passed his lips, he's got a picture of it.
Wow, amazing!
Every single thing.
Don't invite him over for Christmas.
I think outside of water, it's just. But so when he says that he did this or that he did that, or he only ate carbs or he didn't eat, he does stuff that, and he often says, I do this stuff so that you don't have to. Because I don't want to cheat like that. I did an experiment. I had a CGM on for the first time, the last month. And one of the things I promised to do for Dr. Brian Lenskes, he's going to use it in his talk next week, is that I actually drank a Coke to see what had happened, like a real Coke.
Ooh,
It's
I
the
don't think
first
you're gonna
time
swear on my show. Wow.
2015 July, when we started, I have not drunk a single sugary beverage of any kind ever, except until like a week ago. And I asked Pam, I was actually pretty nervous when I drank it.
Yeah, I bet.
But I can't even remember why I was
How
telling
was
you
your
this
spike?
story.
Did it have like snow on it? It was
yeah. So interestingly enough, it definitely, just because my sugars, I'm almost carnivore by this stage, and so my sugars are like really flat. And then suddenly it just went up to like, so sitting in the sort of the around 81 sort of thing, and it we use grams per millimole or something. Is that the same unit that you use? I don't know.
It's different in this country.
Yours is different.
We divide it by a certain number.
Mine started from 81 to 178.
Wow.
And then took about 2.5 hours. No, it took about 4 hours to come back down again.
God, you must have felt awful after that then.
Well, people always say that when they do eat carbs, they feel terrible. And to be 100% honest, I didn't really feel like I didn't feel like ill, which people have reported that they have felt when they've eaten carbs. But it's not like, it's like, oh wow, I didn't feel so bad, so maybe I should have another one. It's like, I'm never doing that again.
And you're not getting any cravings either, because I mean, some people, if they've got an addiction, for instance, that'd be quite a serious thing, wouldn't it?
But I knew right from the beginning that I never had an addiction. In fact, I didn't even really understand the concept of addiction.
I remember you saying last time.
Remember in the previous interview we did, and so I had to become tolerant of that once I learned about it. Rob Cybus is actually the guy I think that really made me aware of this, and how much of an issue it is for so many people. Most people, in fact, are on that spectrum somewhere of addiction.
So would you say then, since running the conferences, is that the thing you've learned? Or is there like a lesson in particular that you could both of you share that you've learned since running these?
Well, yeah, I'm going to go first so Pam doesn't steal mine, in case she was going to steal mine.
How harsh.
You know, I think what I have learned the most is how important community is. You mentioned it, having a place to go where people are on the same page as you. Like in 2016, when we did our first one, I was running around like a chicken without a head. I really was, and just trying to make everything happen. And I didn't notice anything. I was like, I had tunnel vision. All I knew is where's that speaker? He's got to get on the stage. And that was it. When we went to West Palm Beach in 6 months later, it was a much smaller conference, and we were all set up like right outside the hall for the expo and for the registration, as opposed to being way spread out like you saw in San Diego. And
I bet you were going to tell a story about the hotel staff.
Yeah, no. We can get to that as well. But now, because I'd done it before, and it was smaller, and we were like right there, so I wasn't running all over. I was sitting on the side of the registration table, like on my computer, working, and the girls were sitting here, Pam and a couple of other helpers, like taking the registration. And there was a girl that came up to the thing, and she was in tears. And she was saying like she didn't feel like she should really be here, because she's a health coach, but she's like still too heavy, and so she's not a good example, and she doesn't belong here. And Pam and Jean and were saying to her like, no, come on, this is like the place you need to be.
Yeah.
And through that weekend, the transformation in her was just astounding, in terms of her confidence and her belief in herself. And now she's going to go off, and she's going to keep teaching people, helping them to say, like, I'm on the same journey as you. I don't have to look like a skinny, malingy little thing before I can tell you what you need to do to make yourself healthy. And powerful, so that was the start of it. It was like that safe haven for her to be over that weekend was just the most meaningful thing. And then we started to become aware of that for the doctors who do embrace this lifestyle and intervention in their practices, they get treated so badly by their fellow colleagues and their organizations that they belong to and all of that, because they're heretics as far as the rest of them are concerned.
Yeah.
And so they needed, even more importantly than people like us on the man in the street, who just need someone to support them and tell them you're doing the right thing. This is for your health. Make sure that you find a doctor that actually is not going to tell you you're killing yourself. And so, very long roundabout way. But what I've learned and what keeps us going and why we keep doing this and what we continue to try and cultivate is this community of people that get it, and try to build that so that people have a safe place to be.
Love it. Wow, Pam, how are you going to follow that?
I don't know. Really, gosh, you just brought up some stories that I completely forgot about. And both of you talking about that safe place. Gosh. You know, one of the things that I always first go to when somebody asks me what I found is most important for our conferences is the place for somebody who hasn't been able to find this information before, who tells us the story. I often think about that very first conference in 2016. I had a number of people tell us stories of their journey to finding this lifestyle that actually helped them with something that was very chronic.
Right.
And, you know, not only is type 2 diabetes told to people to be chronic and progressive, so it's almost a life sentence for people. This brings hope to people who haven't been able to find answers or have been told that they're going to have to live with something that's devastating to their health for years and years and years to come, and they'll probably just succumb to it. And it's just mind-blowing when somebody tells us a story about how much the information that they learned either at our conference, online, from one of the speakers, through the resources that are provided that we want to make sure are there, but that other people are also compiling, that has changed our life. We've talked to everybody from some people with very rare diseases that the information isn't out there, that ketones themselves that are produced from fatty acids in a low carb diet have been able to fuel, for example, like glycogen storage disease. We had some people come from all over the world. They have always been told that their muscles can't take up glycogen for energy. So they have this really hard time standing up in the morning. They have a really hard time getting to the bathroom and getting to the kitchen and, you know, trying to get their muscles to work in a fashion that most people take for granted. They just get out of bed and then just keep going. Well, they have a problem with uptake, and ketones actually bypass that system pretty quickly. And there was a doctor in Canada who was telling us about how she had started running, you know, after she learned this. And there were kids who were able to go on hikes and travel, and besides get through their schoolwork. And you know, the lady wrote to us, she happened to be right down the street from us at her work. That was like so close. She could have walked to our house. It was insane. And she was saying, I can't believe that you're going to be having a conference in my hometown talking about something that changed my son's life. And we were just like, what? And so she started inviting this group of people from around the world. They try to tell people about the stories like you're talking about, but sometimes many people need the evidence. They need that more people are doing this. There's scientific medical papers being written. So there were people in the audience listening to them. And I remember thinking, Jeff Follett's listening to this. Eric Westman's in the audience listening to this. What if they could help get the message out? So Eric Westman did partner with a nutritionist and write a case study with these participants so that it could be there as a resource for medical practitioners in the future. And that has meant so much to us. So we have found it's so important for the individual, for us, you know, women to share with their families, fathers to share with their brothers, their parents. But we quickly realized
Pavla's story.
What's that?
Pavla's story as well.
And then the individual who wants to be a coach or open a social media platform who reaches tens of thousands of people. We've met more people than I can count on fingers and toes that have gone on to spread these words. We've got a a couple of Latina gals who we met in our Florida conference who went out and who decided at the conference that this meant so much to them. They saw other people inspire them to spread the word. They opened up a social media account to be more accountable, reached 30,000 people in a year.
Wow.
And Pavla was in Czech Republic. She wrote to us a year. She says, I traveled 10,000 miles from Czechoslovakia, or Czech Republic it is now, I think. For every mile that I traveled to San Diego for 10,000 miles, I had 10,000 people on my social media within that year after I went home. And it was like, what?
So I mean, it was a year later, and she was saying, like, based on the trend, by this Sunday we're expecting to pass 10,000 followers. When she came back from the conference, she'd done some studies, but she finished studying nutrition. And she started a little Facebook group that only had a couple of members. And now we're about to pass 10,000. And that's before I talked about it in my opening statement last year in the virtual one. And I got Pam to reach out to her again just before we did that. And what's it, like 350,000 or something now she's got. That's how we reached one person.
And that one person.
And that's what she's been able to do.
Or let's have a podcast. It's all because of your conference. I'm doing this now. You know, that's
how many
the thing,
people
isn't
are
it?
you reaching here, Dan, through this?
Yeah,
I mean,
You hear, how many people write to you every day?
Mum,
every week?
Dad, my wife. I mean, there's at least 3 there, isn't there? And now there's you guys. So there's a few people at least. But you're right. I think it's, you know, you inspire somebody and they then take the message out there and they want to share it. You know what? It's been a real privilege to talk to you both today. I feel like I'm chatting with friends from the past and just catching up, which has been so lovely. And just to let everyone know, so if you go to lowcarbusa.org, that's where you can get your tickets for your online viewing if you're listening to the show in the UK or wherever you are. I know we have people all over the world listening to this show now. And if you use the code UK Low Carb, then you get 20% discount to watch the live stream as well. And it's from August the 26th, which is this Thursday, to Sunday the 29th. And if you are, asleep because of the time zone difference, then you can actually watch it back again as well. So
just can I just say, since this is, we've sprung this on them like 2 days before the event, a week after the event, the tickets will go on sale for next year at an early bird price of 30% off. So
there you go. Fantastic.
For the full thing, meals, as you've recommended already that they should get the meals, they're brilliant. Yeah. So maybe start planning, listen to the live stream here and plan to come to the next one, and you can get a really decent discount.
Definitely worth it. I think it'll be a very different experience, but I think it's lovely you've got both options now. And then, who knows? Actually, that's one thing that's interesting. When I started this podcast, it was beginning of lockdown. It was actually March 2020 I launched, when things were going a bit awry here. And I remember thinking then, like, wow, I'd love to do meetups in person. So hopefully by this time next year, we'll have had some UK-based meetups, and then some people might go across to the States. That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you so much to you, Pam, and you, Doug. I think you're really good people, what you're doing, and it's fantastic to get the message out there. And I'd love to meet you in person again someday soon.
Yeah, when I actually know who you are, and I'll probably remember you this time.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
On that bombshell. Okay, bye guys.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see everybody next week. Thank you.
Hey, bye.
For this week.